Hey folks, welcome to Role of Law. Today I want to talk about the latest development with the ORC license. And if you're not familiar with this is the Open RPG Creative License that was commissioned by Paizo. And this came about in the wake of the OGL debacle because when Wizards of the Coast tried to back away from the OGL, there was a lot of pushback. And so Paizo said, we're going to make a new license. It's going to be a license that encourages sharing of work, and we'll create this virtuous circle where everybody can use everybody else's work. And this will be unchanging and permanent, and it's going to be fantastic. Now, I've been a critic of the ORC license, and so I've got past videos where I criticize it for a number of things, including the mandatory share alike provisions. I took a very different view on this, and there's been a lot of people who've been critical of me for that. So I'm going to try to do this with minimal schadenfreude, because the latest critic of the ORC license is Paizo. So let's talk about that. So they've just put out this statement, and this is on Pathfinder Infinite and the ORC license. So this applies to both Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite, which are sort of their online communities for sharing works and, these marketplaces for sharing works. Now, specifically, these communities these marketplaces have a license that allows you to do maybe more than you could otherwise, because it doesn't just allow you to use like Pathfinder mechanics, but also the setting details. This allows you to use Galarian as well. This creates some problems, especially because there's also already on these things OGL works. So let's have a look at this this statement that this bit that they've added to their FAQ here, which is, how does Pathfinder Infinite interact with the Open RPG Creative License? It says, the Open RPG Creative License and Pathfinder Infinite are two distinct and separate things that allow you to use rules and IP owned by others. The ORC allows publishers to use material designated as licensed material in ORC licensed Paizo publications in their own ORC publications. This is restricted to only licensed material, which is nearly always copyrighted expressions of game mechanics. So far, that's accurate. While Paizo now releases game rules under the ORC, the Community Content Agreement for Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite already grants you the right to use this same content and more. This is where we start getting a little bit dishonest, and I said the same thing with some of Wizard's statements, so we're going to apply the same scrutiny. Sure, it gives you the right to use the same content, but only within the closed walls of Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite. Given that Paizo's been talking up the virtues of the virtuous circle and how it's so important that people have to be mandated to do it, even if they don't want to. And let's face it, they were pretty critical of my comments otherwise. This seems like a bit of a back away, because if you're saying it can only be done within your marketplace, then really we're talking about virtuous circle for you. You have to release your stuff under a virtuous circle, closed marketplace for us. So as such, you do not need to cite the ORC when using any Paizo-owned material that was otherwise released under the ORC. Now note specifically, Paizo-owned material can be used on Infinite because it would be under the Infinite license instead of the ORC license. This means that you can already use anything Paizo owns under the term of the Infinite license, including game rules. Thus, you don't need the ORC to be able to publish derivative material on Pathfinder Infinite, unless, for example, you want to take advantage of this virtuous circle that Paizo has been talking about, and you want to take ORC content and put it onto Infinite, or to use ORC content in your own work. And so they're going to address that. They're going to address how you do that. Specifically, they say, in fact, as of the publication of this FAQ, you are expressly prohibited from releasing any content in your Pathfinder Infinite or Starfinder Infinite product as licensed material under the ORC. They are entirely banning the ORC license, their own commissioned license, like the license they had commissioned to their specifications, can't be used on Pathfinder Infinite or Starfinder Infinite. That's a real big statement of support. Now, there are some reasons why they will do this. Some of those reasons are good, some of those reasons are bad, and they kind of lean into the bad ones right at the outset. So it says, this ensures that what you release on Pathfinder Infinite or Starfinder Infinite remains within this closed ecosystem as required by the Infinite license. Weren't you just talking about how great the virtuous circle is? And now you're saying that it's got to remain within the closed ecosystem. And they look at this little rhetorical dodge, as required by the Infinite license. Well, whose license is that? Oh, that's Paizo's license. That's something that they could update, and they could update the license to say that that's not required because they believe in virtuous circles. So clearly they don't. It also ensures that you or another Infinite publisher don't inadvertently release something you or Paizo don't own that wasn't previously ORC licensed material, like OGL-based open game content under the ORC license. Now, this is, I think, legitimate, but I think it's also a little overblown, because what they're saying is ORC and OGL don't play well together. And that's because each license is a demanding license. It grabs rights from you. It restricts you as a user of that license in pretty broad ways. And so because each of them makes demands, those demands are incompatible. You just can't make this work. It's like trying to be married to two different women who aren't into that. So this is really the problem here, is that now the thing is that this problem exists in the universe at large, because there's lots of content out there that is OGL based content that you just can't use in an ORC product. And that's because both of those licenses really prevent that. I'm just going to sort of note here, the ELF license is specifically designed to avoid that. And so, for example, ELF content can be used potentially, or at least assuming I get the license right, in an ORC work or in an OGL work, even though the reverse isn't true, because those licenses are more demanding. And now I'm putting in specific clauses for working together with other licenses. Paizo could have included that with the ORC. They just chose not to because they intentionally want a license that restricts you. And they do so for the reasons of saying that this virtuous circle is noble and must be supported until it's not convenient. So doing so would put you in violation of the OGL, which doesn't allow open game content to be released under a secondary license. Note that they leave out that it would also put you in violation of the ORC, which doesn't allow that content to be released under a secondary license. So that's a problem. I think that's a little bit, there's a little sleight of hand in this particular statement. This also means that you can't use any ORC license material that didn't originate in a Paizo publication, as the Infinite license doesn't grant you the rights to that material, and you can't comply with the ORC by passing that open content through to downstream users, because, of course, they have locked down Infinite. So, I think that there is some merit to trying to protect their users from inadvertently putting open game content into the ORC, because that is a dangerous thing for if you're writing this. But the way to do that isn't by protecting your own walled ecosystem, because people are still going to be using ORC works outside of your walled ecosystem, and whoever's creating a work always has the responsibility to make sure that they're in compliance. However, the ORC has been touted as you don't need a lawyer for this, and I can virtually guarantee that if somebody was playing around in this environment, eventually somebody's going to find out that they did, in fact, need a lawyer for this. Now, one of the other things that they note here is that the license for products on Infinite is broader. Like ORC gives you license to the mechanics, but it doesn't give you licenses to characters, setting details, all of that stuff. So it doesn't let you set something in Galarian, for a really obvious example. However, you can put that stuff into ORC. That, like, Paizo has the option to solve this problem by releasing all of that into the ORC. That would be an option that solves this issue. But then they don't get to have their closed ecosystem. They don't get to have their closed marketplace. They're putting their closed marketplace above the ideals that they've touted as critical here. And they don't have to, but they choose to. Now, that is entirely their right. But I've been pointing out from the outset that the ORC, while it seems like it's great for everyone who wants to use stuff, really it provides all of the power to the first-party publishers to do stuff like this, where they get to maintain their closed marketplaces, but you don't get to have one. You don't get to have, like, to write up a spell that is yours. So, yeah, and they've said not just that, but that you're a bad person for wanting it. Well, if I'm a bad person for wanting to protect my spells, what do we say when they want to do it? Anyway, they're apparently going to be doing a stream to explain this, but they do have some additional aspects there. For publishers who had hoped to make ORC conversions of OGL content, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to do so. That's always been the case. But technically, neither the OGL nor the ORC nor the Infinite license allow you to do that anyway. Now, Paizo doesn't have the ability to change the OGL, but they do have the ability to change the Infinite license. So they could do that anytime they feel like it. They just don't want to for economic reasons. I mean, this is going to be for money reasons, right? So they also note some things that are kind of interesting. They say, by ensuring products released on Infinite are subject to only a single license, the Community Content Agreement for Pathfinder Infinite and Starfinder Infinite, we actually make a cleaner process for everyone because it means you don't have one license telling you that you need to make all of your game rules open for anyone to use anywhere, and another telling you that what you release on Pathfinder Infinite needs to stay on Pathfinder Infinite. Well, again, you have the ability to change that. You could say that what you release on Pathfinder Infinite can be released on ORC. And the thing is that they could do this without actually violating without giving away any of Galarian, because by default, the ORC doesn't give any of that stuff away. So even if I write something for Pathfinder Infinite that is very heavily based on that setting, all of those setting details are licensed to me via Pathfinder Infinite, but not sub-licensed to anyone else who wants to use the work. But if I create a new monster in there, or a new spell, or a new magic item, or whatever else, that's open for other people. So in theory, they can say, if they just don't put in this rule, then I could find something on Pathfinder Infinite and borrow certain things from it, like those mechanics, but not other things. They've chosen not to allow that. They've chosen to lock that down, and it's because they want that closed marketplace. They want this place where all of those same things, the spells, the magic items, the monsters, and so forth that get published on Pathfinder Infinite, they want those to be exclusive to Pathfinder Infinite and not available under the virtuous circle. So that, I think, is a big indictment of the whole virtuous circle concept. There are some reasons that are, beneficial. I do think that trying to protect their community from the legal hazards of mixing the ORC and the OGL, which again, kind of their fault because they designed the ORC, kind of not their fault because they didn't design the OGL. And both of those licenses are really designed not to play well with others, but we see a very heavy influence on, we want to keep our closed marketplace and we want to have exclusivity that we specifically deny to other people using this content. And so, yeah, kind of want to say I told you so on this one, but I'm going to try to, kind of makes us reevaluate a lot of what they said here. But what do you do about this if you are a creator? And well, first of all, you may want to consider whether or not you want to use Infinite as a place to publish things. The other thing is that if you want to recover mechanics, if you want to reuse mechanics from another work, you're probably going to A, want to talk to a lawyer about what you can and can't do, but B, you can still use mechanics because mechanics, a lot of them are not protectable. It'll just require stripping out the elements that are protectable, which is often the specific way a mechanic is expressed, but not, the underlying math is free for anybody because you can't own math through copyright. This is a process that you probably want to talk to a lawyer about if you're doing that. But all of this has gotten a little bit more complicated. And several of the excuses that they're making here are just things that they could make go away at any point just by saying, we're going to change the Infinite license. We're going to allow more things than we allowed previously. They don't want to. That's their right. But anyway, so let me know in the comment section what you think of this one. I think this one, there are some people who are upset by this. There are people who are not upset by this. I'm kind of interested in hearing both sides on this one. I hope I've been fair to Paizo in this. I mean, I am critical of this decision, but I also hope that I've done so in a way that people are saying, okay, yes, that's a reasonable take on it. If you don't think so, let me know in the comments below. I can try to address some of that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Cheers.